To close off this track, I would like to invite Amir Taaki to the stage. He's from Bitcoin, and they do virtual currency, so something completely different.
Hello. So I came to the first talk today and I missed most of it, but I saw what the guy was talking about, Austrian economics and the instability caused by fractional banking, and it's a real shame I missed this talk because I actually agreed a lot with the things he said. And today I'm going to be talking about this new idea that if you're a creative, out-of-the-box thinking person, then you're immediately going to see the huge potential of the system, or you might dismiss it if it pushes your boundaries too much. I'm talking about Bitcoin, which is a new, Bitcoins are cash, and it's a new kind of decentralized cryptocurrency. It's the world's first completely decentralized currency, and the source is open for anybody to use. And next slide. And it's completely international. There's no owners for this network. Nobody owns the infrastructure. And there's already 10,000 people using it, every day exchanging about $100,000. And the economy is worth about 4.5 million. And each of these transactions has no middlemen taking any cut of the transactions which they send, and in complete privacy. Bitcoin's addresses are not attached to your username, so nobody can trace your payment history. It's anonymous, and people are selling everything from alpaca socks to digital goods to online to real goods, online services. Some people, next slide. Some people there is an active market actually selling drugs and shipping it to people, and you go on 4chan and people are actually using this market actively. So it's something that's already working. And back one slide. And in the last 6 months, since Bitcoin has been taken up, it's really exploded in the growth. The exchange rate has rocketed because we're hackers and technologists, and when we see technology and we understand the potential, we pick it up. And these technologies, we pick them up before they disperse into the mainstream. So usually what happens, what technology comes into the mainstream that's like new is actually pretty old for us. And at the beginning of this, at the beginning of this slide, at the beginning of this growth, someone sold a pizza for 10,000 Bitcoins, and today a pizza is worth 30 Bitcoin. Okay, so this is the Bitcoin client. At the moment, it's not very user-friendly, but that's because it's early technology. And you can see this is the interface. You click send, and you can type in an address or select one from your address book and enter your amount. And there you go. We just sent money to someone in Japan across international borders. There's no tracing of your location, and the money is completely liquid. So back to the slides. So at the moment, we're trying to grow the economy. And how Bitcoin works is it's based on this peering technology in which the entire network manages a collective database. And in this collective database is backed up by strong cryptography and laws, strong cryptography and mathematics, not laws. So you can always ensure that your payments are valid. So can we go to the websites? This is a list of people who are already actually trading with Bitcoins. There's a list of exchanges and all various goods that people are using. It's an active economy. My laptop, I bought that with Bitcoins. And one of the really cool things is gambling. You can have gambling sites for poker and lots of various games, because I think all of these laws that are very restrictive on gambling sites, they're very inhibiting to progress. There's a lot of very cool stuff that we could make, but we're held back. And really, it causes a lot of trouble. If you go to the next tab, this is like a really cool site. You make a payment to the site, and then there's a 49% chance you get double your payment back, or there's a 51% chance your payment gets taken in. So it's instant gambling gratification. Yeah. Next tab. Okay, so maybe you're really concerned about privacy, and you want to obfuscate your transaction history. Even though the addresses aren't connected to your real identity, you can use a laundry service, which will take the payments in, obfuscate them, and then when they come back out, it's impossible to trace. Next one. I'm not sure what this is. Next one. This isn't mine. Okay, so this is really another cool thing about Bitcoins is micropayments. This is a forum, but it's not a normal forum. It costs to post. You can post for a tiny amount or a big amount, but when people vote on your posts, you get a payment back. So it's rewarding users for making good posts. And instead of getting the forum spammed by users who want to just raise their post count or reputation, you get a forum which is filled with useful content, people wanting to create new information, and they're getting rewarded for it. Yeah, it's paid by voters. When you post, you get a vote back. So next slide. And another example of the micropayments economy in action. If you're a content creator, you upload your content to this site, you set a fee, so for instance, 2 Bitcoins, and whoever downloads your content off this site, they pay the fee, and you get that 2 Bitcoins back to you. Actually, the site keeps, I think, 10%. So you would get 1.8 Bitcoins back, and the site would get 0.2. So this is an example of how you could sell content on the internet. So, and the next one, there's a site selling sex toys for Bitcoin for people who wish to stay anonymous for whatever reason. Next. A lot of people are very unhappy with the banks and how they're managing the economy. And they might redirect their anger being, oh, it's towards the capitalism and the free markets, but it's not. It's really to do with the corruption of the free market. So with Bitcoins, you have no banks. You're a master of your own cash, and you can choose how you secure your cash. So whether you want to actually pay someone to secure your money, you can, and if you don't need to pay someone to secure your cash. You can do it yourself. So next slide. So, okay, the Bitcoin network is secured by this process of hashing, which is calculating these mathematical riddles, which, when you calculate the answer to the riddle, every time you do it, it protects the network in such a way that it stops a malicious attacker from being able to make fraudulent transactions or overtake the network. And as you can see, because the process of mining is actually the way of verifying transactions. And when you verify a transaction, you get a small reward in exchange. And as you can see, because of this reward, the competition for mining is immense. Like now, so you're calculating these mathematical riddles, and what are you doing? You're wasting CPU power, and CPU power burns electricity. Now, the cost of mining is not profitable. Like, it's been totally driven to complete market competitive level. So if you mine Bitcoins, then you'll just be like losing money because the cost of electricity is more than the reward you get for mining Bitcoins. And we can't tell how you use Bitcoins. So you are free to use them however you wish, because there's no way anyone can tell how you're using them. And next slide. Actually, no, go back. Okay, I forgot a graph, but Bitcoin supply is fixed. So this is a very important concept. Bitcoin is actually analogous to gold. In over 30 years, there's going to be 21 million Bitcoin in total. Now, you might say 21 billion, oh, that's not a lot, but each Bitcoin can be divided to 8 decimal places and actually potentially more decimal places. So you can have 0.0000001 Bitcoin, and that's a valid amount to send. So what that means is that because there's a fixed supply, this currency is actually going to be a deflationary currency. So people actually have an incentive to actually put their money in Bitcoins rather than putting their reserves into a currency which loses value over time. So, next slide. Actually, okay. So, I'm a child of the internet. Like, I'm not a business person. I'm a coder and a programmer. And from a young age, I've loved the freedom that the internet allows me to explore and do like amazing things. But whenever I tried to expand into real life to like integrate with antiquated banking APIs, there was just roadblocks flown up in my face. So it's impossible for me to work, to like set up a small business. And you can only imagine all the things that other people are trying to do. And how I got involved with Bitcoin was I wanted to set up a poker site, because at the moment there are 3 main poker sites: Party Poker, PokerStars, Full Tilt Poker. And they form this cartel, and they take huge amounts of rake. They offer really, really bad service, really terrible software that hardly is ever updated. In fact, Party Poker had some really bad, really terrible security flaws. And this is caused just by the huge barrier of entry there is for gambling sites. So this is how I came to Bitcoin. And if we had a freer economy, a freer internet, then this is really going to increase the quality of everything on the internet. At the moment, the internet is just a muddy sea of mediocrity. But even the smallest amounts of money are going to have a huge increase in the quality of the internet. Because, like, for instance, in poker, if you play the highest play money games, you get like drunks, just like, oh, this is not real money, I don't really care. But you play the lowest real money games, like $1 or 1 cent, 2 cent, then like, oh, it's real money, this is serious business. There's a sudden huge leap in the skill level. So you can also imagine this with other types of creative artworks on the internet, or websites, or other things that people, because a lot of people like to do the things they love, and the payment for them is just like a sweetening factor and just enough to push them to do it a little further. And some people will work for next to nothing to just do something they love. Okay, so where does Bitcoin come from? Okay, well, Bitcoin is this software that has emerged out of the cypherpunks community. And who are the cypherpunks? Well, in the 90s, encryption was made illegal by the US government, and the way the cypherpunks got around that was by printing the source code of PGP in a book, which is protected under the First Amendment, and then people would buy the book and OCR scan the source code and compile it on their computers. And next slide. Also responsible for BitTorrent. Despite the best efforts of law enforcement, media organizations, and governments to shut down this media sharing tool, this tool for free information flow, it's been futile. Like, nothing's been able to stop it. And Bitcoin uses peering technology too. Next slide. And this is the latest in the saga. WikiLeaks. As of counting, there's 10,000 mirrors of their site and dozens on various darknets. They bounce the information around the planet using similar peering technology. It shows that you can't really stop free information flow in the internet. They've tried to block the DNS servers, but it hasn't been effective at all. So next slide. So who is the person that created Bitcoin? His name is Satoshi, and nobody really knows who he is. He released this code 2 years ago, and it was mostly ignored until a few months ago when it was just discovered on the internet and suddenly taken up. And now the community has gone in, and there's lots of people with invested interests, many people looking over the source code, so nothing bad can get in. He's disappeared. And this guy, so next slide. Oh, there's a missing slide. Okay, go back. Well, so how can I trust Satoshi? Well, I don't have to trust Satoshi. I'm a programmer, and in the same way that someone can read Spanish, I can read code. So I can read what Satoshi has written. And he's not a very good programmer. He's actually a fairly lackluster programmer. But the idea works. The concept he's come up with, the model, the mathematical framework, in every angle I've looked at it, I haven't found any flaws. And so I trust the code because I can read it. And in the very first block that started off the entire Bitcoin chain, there's a message inside this block, and it gives a clue as to his real intentions. And it says, The Times, 03 January 2009. Chancellor on the brink of second bailout of banks. So, any questions?
What do I need to do to participate in Bitcoin?
What do you mean? Do you mean integrate your website, or do you mean actually
To
just
cash
use it?
in.
No. No, just to start using Bitcoins.
Well, you offer a service, or you go onto an exchange and
No,
you buy some Bitcoins. I actually run the UK exchange, and
Okay.
there's a US one and one for Europe.
I have to download a client or something? Or?
Oh yeah, well,
That's
if
what I mean.
you're not very good with computers, you
Yeah.
can put your trust into an online service that will handle your wallet and stuff for you. But if you're like me, you're very paranoid. I don't use like MSN or any of these things. I'm like very anonymous on the internet. But if you're like me, then you probably want to like download the client and like check the source code and make sure everything's running like secure.
All right, and then I have this client, and then what? I can pay at sites? Is there like Bitcoin as a method of payment?
There's actually, if you open the browser, there's actually a website, and it's like a volunteer website that will hand out to any new user 0.05 Bitcoins, and it's called the Bitcoin Faucet. Okay, so they will give you some free Bitcoins to play with. But if you really want to acquire some Bitcoins, you either have to start selling something of value that other people purchase, or you can go to an exchange. If you go to bitcoinwatch.com, you can see the rates of the currency. Okay, so you asked how could you... Okay, well, it depends on what kind of exchange you run, because the exchange I run, I just provide a platform for people to I act as an escrow, so people upload their bitcoins and they upload their pounds, and then I allow people to transfer, and I set the balances and accounts to be proper. But if you want to be just like some booth that like people come and you just sell them at a fixed rate, then you have to acquire some bitcoins, maybe from an exchange. Yeah, it comes from this. It comes from this mining process, which is okay. Right. The point behind this currency is as fair and as democratic as any currency can be. If you read the original scientific paper, it says 1 CPU, 1 vote. So because you can't verify people's real identity, you instead go to the second next best thing. You say, okay, they have 1 CPU, they have 1 vote in this network for generating blocks. I'm like working with a US company to legitimize my exchange, and when they're talking to lawyers, a lot of the time, like they're like, "Oh, what is this? This is so different to everything else we've heard of," and so of course it's like very murky and unknown situation at the moment.